Hello, everyone. Welcome. Appreciate your patience for the 7 or 9 or so people that tuned in. Been having some technical difficulties. Don't know what's up, but it looks like everything is better now. I did a whole complete reboot, and I'm excited. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be discussing velocity banking and your health. So health and wealth put together, what does it look like? And I'm going to be doing less talking today because I have a guest for the very first time on this YouTube channel who has been a client of mine for a few years now, an awesome client, and might I even say a friend, right? Someone that I can discuss things, discuss personal matters, one specific area being my health. And this really, this whole workshop that we're going to put together was really inspired by this person and also just my desire. I'm in a season in my life where I've been paying more attention in terms of my time, my money, energy, and the people that I care about around me getting involved in us improving our health. I'm 28 years old now, and I've been on this health discovery journey through the YouTube, right? Primarily YouTube, social media influencers, you name it, doing different diets, different supplements, trying different things to just overall improve my health, right? And so I know there's a lot of people watching, a lot of my clients that have a desire. First and foremost, you come to this channel for finance. You're trying to pay off debt, you're trying to increase cash flow, you're trying to better your investments, you're trying to save more money, you're trying to pay your house off, or you're trying to leverage, trying to create more income. But for what, right? Like, why do we want to have all this wealth? Why do we want to have all this money outside of what material things we can buy with money, right? Those are the surface level stuff, I would say. Most of the time when I talk to you guys, and I'm looking who's in the chat, Tim, shout out to Tim Harlow in the house, Anthony Henderson, both longtime clients. And I'm going to give you both a shout out, Tim and Anthony Henderson, that if you'd like to come on the channel, share your story, share your journey, what you've been working on, your progress, I'm calling you guys out because I have none other than Chris Staton in the house, who is a client. I want to bring him up on the screen. And he's brave enough to get in front of the camera, share his story, share what he's got going on. So I want to thank you a million times over for doing this. It takes a lot. It's kind of odd. It's a lot of people fear getting in front of the camera as highly as public speaking, right? And that's kind of like what you're doing right now. Is you're publicly speaking to an audience via social media, and the number one fear outside of dying, right next to it, is public speaking. And you could, right below that is public speaking on social media platforms, right? Just putting yourself out there in front of the camera. Can't tell you how many clients I know that have a dream just like yours, Chris, and many others watching, that have not taken that step to publicly announce what it is that they do, how they help people, how they want to serve, how they want to create impact and change. And the most efficient way to do that, in my opinion, is through public speaking. And in the 21st century is getting on social media and sharing that message, right? And being able to impact a lot of folks. So we've got 18 people in the house. I know people are very interested in this particular topic today. So
That's exciting.
I want to give you the floor. As I said, I'm gonna do my best to talk a little less today. I know you have a lot to share, and I'm gonna do my best to guide. But if you will, take a few minutes to talk a little bit about yourself, how you initially found my work, and how it's helped you in your life. You can go over numbers, progress, mindset, wherever you'd like to take it. I want to give you a few minutes to address the people here with us now, 24 people in the house.
Awesome. Yeah. First off, thank you, Denzel, for putting this together. And yes, I do consider you a friend at this point. So that's awesome. Yeah. So basically, my story starts, I would say, just figuring out where my expenses were and where we were going as a family. So, me and my wife, we had finally moved into our own house, did the first big purchase, and we thought we were doing well. Just I guess the typical U.S. lifestyle. Not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but it got to a point where I was noticing that we were dipping into our savings account a little bit more and more. And I don't know, for all the husbands out there, if maybe you can relate, but I was coming home almost every other day, which seemed like every day, to another Amazon box on the stoop. And it perked the interest of like, okay, well, how much are we actually spending, and so on and so forth.
What
And
year is this, by the way? What year?
so we're talking right around 2019,
Okay.
2018, I believe, somewhere in there. I could be wrong. Of course, my wife will correct me as usual if I am. But what had happened was I started paying a lot more attention to the finances, and then I started reading up more on debt and really wealth accumulation. Um, my family growing up never we weren't poor by any stretch of the means, but we weren't necessarily rich. And my father being a physician, I had a lot of extended family and a lot of my father's friends, extended family, let's say, that were physicians as well or in the medical field. And I kind of noticed their lifestyle and kind of put it side by side mine and ours. And I was like, okay, there's obviously a difference. So when I finally started having my own family, I didn't necessarily want to follow in the same footsteps. And my father always said that his goal was to make sure that his kids had a better life than he had. And I think that's kind of how it all perpetuates, or at least in my view on how we should all kind of view it a little bit, is to have the next generation be a little bit better off. So it really, once you get your own house, you have your first kid. So, 2016, 2017, 2018, it's like, okay, we've gone now. I have my first kid, going on my second kid. All right, where are we going with all this? Where's all the finances going? And that's when I really started looking at wealth building and how do I accumulate wealth. It led me first, and you know this plan, Dave Ramsey, you know that name. I felt his plan was a good starting point. The austerity measures, let's say, in it are, some would say, too restrictive, and it doesn't take a lot into account with what the current state of finances are, and all of that is may have some truth into it. But I looked at it as habits. What habits does an individual have? What habits does a family have? And where do we need? We kind of want to be more stable at first. And his plan was very basic. And I felt I could start there. As long as I got everyone on board, we would start there. And that went very well until I wanted, let's say, a little bit more. Now that I had a foundation, and I know this is where you start as well with all your clients, even if they're coming to you not knowing who Dave Ramsey is, you still need to have your basics, right? You always say you need to have your numbers, know your numbers. And that's absolutely true. You need to know your numbers. And that's where we started. And then I noticed once we got to a certain point where all we had left was our mortgage. And again, you can't outrun math to a certain extent. So you see how one plan works and you know how long it's going to take with some give or take, within there. And then you start looking at elsewhere. How can I do this a little bit more now that I have a good foundation? I know what my finances are. I know what my income stream is. I know how much is going out, right? I know I can control all that. So knowing all that, how do I get better? How do I do this better? How can I get it better? And it led me down, I swear, it led me down a rabbit hole. And that's when I found your channel at like, it's got to be like a Friday night at 11 o'clock. I'm streaming YouTube stuff. And your channel pops up on this velocity banking concept. And I'm like, all right, let me take a look at this. And what attracted me to your page, and I guess to your style, was the way you laid it out. You had this big ass whiteboard, and you were just writing on a whiteboard. And it reminded me, quite honestly, of when I was working in the pharmacy and I had students under me, and I had in the room a big ass whiteboard. And I'm writing up on the whiteboard all the different drugs and whatnot, what we do in my field, and all this stuff. For those who don't know, little side note, I am by profession, I am a pharmacist. I have a doctorate degree in pharmacy, so I am a PharmD. I also specialize, I moved into specialty pharmacy, so I specialize in nuclear pharmacy. So on top of that, I'm a board certified nuclear pharmacist. Worked in the pharmacy for 10 to 13 years, somewhere, no, about 10 years. And then I transitioned out of the pharmacy world into the pharma world. So now I currently work for a radiopharmaceutical company in developing drugs for nuclear medicine. So that's my professional background. So, we were going on this, and as I said, I found you on YouTube, and the big whiteboard is what drew me in because I had that parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have binged, I'd say, a good 2-3 weekends on just about all of your content. And the numbers, and I'm not a numbers guy, just to put it out there. Like I can do numbers, but it takes me a while. And I think that's probably why it was the whole binging aspect really, really solidified it, because it was just over and over and over and over again, which I loved. And it really hit home that there is another way. There are, as the phrase goes, more than one way to skin a cat. And when I did more and more research into velocity banking itself, I realized that this concept wasn't necessarily new. It had been used in other parts of the world, which when you really start doing research, there is other parts of the world outside of the United States, and they may do things a little bit differently than us here that could be beneficial. Yeah. So I found that this was a very popular method in Australia specifically. I think it's called accelerated banking over there, something like that, where people can purchase homes and have it all paid off 5 to 7 years, 10 at most. So I said, damn, here we are stuck with either a 10, 15, or 30 year. No one goes with a 10 because it's too damn much. And, unless you have a lot of money to put down and your, mortgage and this, and you have a really big income. So most people get a 30 year. And the popular way of doing it is whatever you pay your mortgage for 30 years, whatever money you can have extra, you put into investments. Throw it into the stock exchange or IRA or 401k or something like that. So while that's a good plan for most, I had doubts. Right, I wanted something a little bit faster, wanted something a little bit quicker. And again, coming from the Dave Ramsey background, your best driver, let's say, for wealth creation is your income, according to him, right? According to that plan, and according to most people. So I did want more, and getting my wife on board, that was another thing, because I had just gotten her onto the Dave Ramsey plan, and here I am a couple of years in, and it's like, how am I going to get now?
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are we doing now? Now I got to listen to some kid on a whiteboard. I'm like, come on, let's So I had her binge a couple of videos, and she understood it. She followed, especially the way you laid it out. And then I finally reached out, man. I said, you know what? I got a good connection here. I feel like a good gut feeling. I think we did a 30-minute consultation call.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was, once we had that call, both of us, Corinne and I, we both sat down with you. It was like, all right, we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, if we're going to do this, this is the individual we want on our side, showing us the way.
And this had to have been, I think, 2022, because I was still in my apartment.
Right.
and most of our calls were via the whiteboard. That was your preference. So every time we
Yes.
jumped on a call together, I would, set up the Zoom, and I'd have your numbers on the board, and we would just, hammering away, mapping things out. And so, long story short, as it relates to just your velocity banking experience, it initially started out where it was just getting the numbers down, getting the foundation, and then eventually acquiring the first lien HELOC, right?
That was huge. Yeah, that was so once we had made the decision, and you're absolutely right, it was okay, now how do we structure this? Because again, you have an idea, you have a mindset, right? You have a dream, you have a vision, but there's a lot of work that goes in before you actually start to execute,
Yep.
right? So we had that foundation with our numbers, but now it's like, okay, what's the best method or best route to get to where we want to be? With our case, I think it was a little bit simpler than some of your other cases because all we did have at the time was the mortgage. Now the mortgage was, three, just under, I believe. I think we had started around three.
Yeah.
Then it had hit down just below three, and we were chopping away at that. So it was around 300K. Then we got it down to 290. I think we were below 290 going into the end of 2022.
Right.
And we were and this is where I'm going to transition. We were riding okay because I think we had just ended I think we had just flipped everything over to the first savings, first lien HELOC
Yep.
around October. I think it was around September, October 2022. And from there, we were about 2, 3 months in, and it was everything seemed to be going good. Consequently, around that same exact time, I had left the pharmacy, took a leap of faith on top of this, and got a job with a radiopharmaceutical company. And it came with a very big pay raise, new salary, totally different job from what I was used to. Working from home, remote, traveling every once in a while, and it was a different. Everything seemed good, right? Everything was well on its way until one day I was fired from that job. 2 months in,
Yeah.
December 23rd of 2022 is when I got the notice. They gave me a month severance pay, and then I was out of my job. It was quite a surreal time, I would say, and it totally took us by surprise. It was a total shocker. But after 2 or 3 weeks of sleepless nights, one thing that I was not worried about was the finances. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we had now transitioned into this velocity banking
Mm-hmm.
first lien HELOC method. So your viewers know exactly what that is or what it entails. And if they don't, I can do a little reminder. I now had, I guess, the purse of my house behind me, so to speak, right? Not that I wanted to use it that way, but that's what I did. I had the availability of all the equity in my house as my purse. So all my expenses technically were taken care of because I had this entire line of credit. So I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily have to worry, right?
And you had already been doing it a little bit within
Oh,
that job change. I know. I
yeah.
remember. I remember one of our calls. You said, "Look, dude, we're about to pay off this house." Like this guy's energy was high because like everything was going in the right direction. I was like, "Oh, dude." Then everything I mapped out, I was like, "You're gonna probably like blow right past this." And you got the first lien HELOC with First Savings Bank. I think the credit limit was in the 700K range, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you had
Oh, yeah.
we're talking a
I
massive
had,
credit
yeah.
line. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is the tremendous value that a lot of people really underlook when they're comparing, debt snowball extra payments versus the velocity method, when most of the time they're just looking at the interest rate of both, keeping my lower rate mortgage versus my higher rate first lien HELOC. And I would say one of the factors that can give velocity banking a huge edge is in the event job loss, significant decrease in income, one spouse leaves their job for a period of time, or there's maybe a period one of the people get retired, and there's just a season where you don't know where income's coming from. And you've got this massive credit line that we can dip into slowly, and we don't have to think about where is the money going to come from. There's no additional stress being added in. You already know how to use the tool effectively, efficiently, and there's no downtime in that. A lot of people go into like a downtime where they're like, I'm going to stop paying off debt because I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know what my new job's going to be, or what the new season's going to lie ahead, or whatever the case may be. Then let's say they get that new job, they're working again. It usually takes them a few months to get back on track with making those extra payments, versus in your case, out of a job. So whether you're doing snowball or velocity, there's no debt being technically paid off. You're slowly increasing the debt in the most efficient way possible. And then once you got your new position, it was just like clockwork. It was okay, well, direct deposit right into the first lien, expenses come out, cash flow positive. It's going to start, knocking it down. And also all of that previous work that we did with the cash that you initially put into the house, that can show up as emergency funds, as emergency savings, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to have emergency separate over here, debt elimination over here. Any dollar I put toward that debt, I no longer can, I can't access it again in the event I lose my job. So if I burn through my savings, now I got to borrow from a friend, borrow from a bank. Some way, shape, or form, I'm going into more debt, which is going to cost me more interest. So just wanted to kind of like share the value there, and a lot of people miss that. The only people that see it is, in your case, people that actually go through it. So you went through that. So 2 months in to that job, you get fired. How long were you without a position until you got into the new position that you're at now?
Yeah, so officially, I finally found a solid position. I started in April. So it went from essentially January, February, March, and then I started April 3rd of 2023.
So about 3 months, no income?
So it was, no, that was a solid position. So
Oh,
my
okay.
wife was still working, and that's what satisfied the basic payment,
Yeah.
right? Was she was working 3 days a week as a part-time dental hygienist. She was able to take on a couple of more hours, and that satisfied the basic requirement for the monthly payment into the check, right? So that was taken care of. In the meantime, also what I did was I switched to a consultant work, and I was able to hook up with my old company
Mm-hmm.
and do some traveling pharmacist work for them. So I was basically flying a week at a time to their pharmacy in Ohio. Columbus, was it Columbus? No, I forget where the city is. Cleveland. Oh, Cleveland. I was going into Cleveland, and I was going in there maybe once or twice a month, and I was billing them as a consultant. So I was doing like consultancy pharmacy work there, and I was doing that at like I said, at a week at a time, 7 days, maybe 5 days, and that would bring in a decent chunk because I set up a contract with them, set my hourly rate. So it was like I was on my own. I had formed my own traveling nuclear pharmacist business, which there are individuals that do that, and not that I wanted to do that, but that's what I needed to do, get out of my comfort zone and start doing something just until I landed a more solid position.
Gotcha. Awesome. So let me do a little recap here for everyone. So by April, this is 23, right?
Correct.
That we're in that new position that was more solid, not the consulting work. That was like the in between.
Yes. That
Okay.
was I started that in February. So I had, or the end of January. So the last couple of weeks of January, I had found that, and all the way up through the end of March. And I started April 3rd,
Okay.
2020.
Cool. Cool. And was that position equal to the first main job that you had, or was it a little more? What was that like?
Right. So it was in between. So
Yeah.
I had left I was a pharmacy manager, and I had left to go to the other company that was significantly more. And this one was in between those two salaries. So it was good in a way because it was, I didn't have enough time, or I should say the family didn't have enough time to get used to the newer salary of the brand new company, right? And when I didn't get that income, it wasn't like we were very used to it for that long. 2 months really isn't a good, decent amount of time. So nothing really changed either, right? Our spending habits didn't change. We didn't have time for anything. If anything, what it did do was it covered all of our Christmas expenses. So that was something that we're really fortunate about. What we had budgeted, we took care of it easily. Plus, we had a little bit extra that we were able to put away because of the new salary. But that was it. That was all that we were able to do with that. Because then I lost it, and then when I found this job, it was in between those two salaries. So it was still more than what we were used to, which was great. But it just wasn't the same as the one that I had just lost.
Nice. Gotcha. So then go through 2023. We're in that new position now. You're, still doing velocity banking, and then I think later in the year, you then hit me up again. You're like, "Hey, we're buying a house, right?" Or you're like, "We're closing out
Yeah.
this first savings, and we're about to get another first savings, first lien HELOC with First Savings Bank, right?" So we did that transition, moved to a whole new state. So we got all these moves going on, right? And while that's going on, you also have this desire that you wanna help people in the health space. And I know behind the scenes I was encouraging you, like maybe we should create some content, kind of show people how you're doing it, you know, the results you've had personally, and be able to speak to that. And so if you want to touch on that journey, getting to that point where it's like built that solid financial foundation, and now you have this dream, you want to help people. We have our career, that's what pays the bills, allows us to save money, pay off our debt faster, invest, even eventually buy policies, get those going, all these different things, right? Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm gonna start with that was a huge desire of mine. I consider myself an individual that just likes to help people, and I enjoy watching people be helped. Maybe it's I don't know where it necessarily comes from, but it could be because my father was a physician. I used to go with him to the hospitals and whatnot, and I used to with his patients and whatnot. And then just working in the pharmacy, you have to have a certain sense of empathy for people also, and caring for individuals to really want to be able to help them, and I enjoyed that. There is a selfish aspect to it. You want to see people, it makes you feel good, and that's part of it. Um, as far as the fitness and health wise goes, I think having the pharmacy background helps me a lot because I can help and speak to a lot of disease states, or at least the most common ones, a little bit more than, let's say, a layperson can. Um, Going through pharmacy school also allowed me with certain skills in which I can take very large, complex, like, situations and drive them home so that a layperson can understand them. So
So you're
that's
taking
an
the
advantage.
complex, making it simple for
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things my father always said, the essence of complexity is simplicity. So if you can, everything is simple at one point. It's just how you get it, how it gets to that individual, right? So it could be very complex situation, but everything can be driven to a very simple point and simple steps. So I think my pharmacy background, and again the exercises that I did with my father, helped me get that type of aspect. And then as far as coaching, um, I've always kind of been, I think, a coach, because health and fitness wasn't necessarily, or a nutrition coach wasn't my first coaching gig, so to speak. I did it more with sports, baseball. I would help little league teams, or individuals on little league teams, specifically pitching, because that's what I was. I was a pitcher and first baseman. So I did a little bit of that with some kids from my old high school and even in high school. And then, as far as a business wise and coaching, I first started out as a bowling coach. So I have been an avid bowler my entire life, and I did all the way through college. At one point, was actually contemplating going on tour. I had worked in a bowling alley. I had worked at a bowling pro shop inside the alley, and I was able. I knew everything in and out of that sport, and I turned that into my very first, let's say, business, where I was coaching individuals and my high school team in bowling. And I was doing okay. I'm not gonna lie, I was doing all right. I could have done obviously a little bit more. But that was more one to one. You had to be at the lanes, and I was trying to transition and find a way to transition to online. And in the midst of doing that, COVID hit and shut everything down. And that's when it kind of dawned on me that it doesn't really matter when it comes to this type of coaching, because if there are no centers open or around, I can't coach. Like, I can't be a coach here. So I was thinking of maybe something else. Maybe I can do something else. So one thing that had caught my eye and always has always been part of me was health and fitness. And the reason for that was because growing up, I was a very heavy kid. I remember eighth grade, and I tell this story a lot because this is actually the first time you become aware. Like, the moment you become aware of something, it's something that you don't necessarily forget. It's like one of those aha moments. Whether it's a good aha or a negative aha, you just never really let it go. And it was in eighth grade. I was playing gym, and we were outside playing basketball. And I was on the basketball team in eighth grade, and baseball and all that stuff. And just so happens to be it was a nice day. We were outside, and the gym teacher called me over, and she said, "Chris, I'm really concerned about your weight." And I'm like, "Okay, why? What about it?" Now, I knew I was a heavy kid, but she goes, the wind just blew against your shirt in such a way, and I didn't like what I saw. There's the aha.
Wow.
Okay, now I'm not pleasing to the eye, and so to speak, right? My physical appearance is now not pleasing. Now, that some people will say that that's mean of what she did. Regardless of what it was, it's already there. She did it out of, she was concerned, genuinely concerned. It never left me. That's when I had the aha, like, okay, something else has to be done. Something new has to be done. Um, it was then in high school, because I was eighth grade, so we went into high school the next year, freshman year. I started that summer going into a gym, and I was told I have to work out, I have to start running, I have to do all this stuff. And I'll say it was until junior year that I finally got things to click, so to speak, on that aspect. And I got an idea of what it was to be healthy as far as lifting weights and how to eat certain foods. Now, I didn't know anything else other than that. And from there all the way through high school, through college, even start my career right after college, I had dabbled in so many different types of diets, read so many different types of articles, tried several different workout routines, programs. I mean, I can run through a litany of them. The zone diet, the Weight Watchers diet, the keto diet, the carnivore diet, P90X, Insanity, P90. I mean, you name it, I've probably have done it or tried it. Okay, paleo, CrossFit, anything and everything. I was trying to find something that gave me my physique, that look that I had in my head of what I thought I felt, or I felt I should be. Nothing touched it. Nothing. I mean, I've gotten close, but then it was the dedication, and then it was, is this really all the information and all that stuff, and so on and so forth. So fast forward to 2020, in the middle of COVID, right right around the summertime of COVID, I'd gotten the itch to compete. So I decided to go and do a bodybuilding show. And during this time, I was 3 years keto and 6 months carnivore, and it just wasn't working anymore. I had been very successful in keto. I thought it was the end all be all. I got swooped into that whole lifestyle. I went real hard, testing my blood ketone level like every day or every other day. Like I went all into it,
Mhm.
just to find out that it's good until it doesn't work anymore. And I wanted to know why. And I thought that if I competed, I was able to maybe learn something from a coach in this realm that knew what to do with physiques, because these are the for whatever it is, be that, these individuals who get up there and do this, they've got to know something, right? They look at these, and it's not all just steroids. It isn't. Steroid, you could be on steroids and still look terrible.
Right.
So there's got to be something else into it, and I wanted to know what that something else was.
And before you go any
And
further,
yeah,
for the 30 plus people that are in the house now, we're going to be transitioning over to really how the correlations that you've learned in personal finance that you mastered, and how those things
yeah,
that you mastered in health, how these things kind of correlate, relate to each other. But for those that are here live, if you are on any specific diet at all, comment below what it is that you're trying. If you're genuinely interested in improving your health, right, and how velocity banking can help that in terms of the direction that we take the strategy in, right? I was just doing a boot camp with two other ladies where we're designing our lifestyle. We're designing exactly what we want velocity banking to do for us. And I'm very interested in hearing how these different health diets or systems, like which one's the right one, or is there even a right one, or is there a way to basically simplify all the complexities of these different diets and strategies, maybe like an all-in-one loan type thing, right? Like something that is consistent. How can I create automation? What are the numbers? Those sorts of things. So again, if you're with us live, comment below any particular diet you're currently on, or a certain content creator influencer that you're listening to that's encouraging you on a certain method on improving health, whether it's weight loss or um, you want to perform, you're trying to build on a lot of muscle, whichever your goal is, drop in the comments as Chris continues to just break down his story, his mission, his process, and then we're gonna get into some action steps for everyone that's listening as well. All right, so continue.
and that's a perfect transition, really is, because once I actually decided to do this and I hooked up with individuals that were going to help me along the way. Shout out to Coach Phil, Phil Pirtle. He really guided me along this way once we were able to find out the foundation. And now this is where everything came into play. And this is where I like to say, as you mentioned, the combination of finances and everything and health, how they overlap. Because what was shown to me on how to track nutrition was very, very similar to, let's say, the very basic foundations on finances. And now, what do I mean by that? You learn what the system is through the law of thermodynamics when it comes to weight gain, weight loss, or maintenance. Okay, the law of thermodynamics cannot be beaten. That's why it's called a law. It happens the same way every single time. So, in order, and people may disagree with this, but scientifically, there is no way around this. The amount of calories you consume versus the amount of calories that you let go determines on whether you're going to maintain, gain, or lose weight. I should say fat loss.
That's
That's
it.
it. That's it.
All
That
right.
that is that we take all these complex, all these fad diets, all these different methods, when it boils down to that. Now, it's simple, but then on the other side, why is it that people don't know it, or they always look like I did to something else? Is there magic? Is there any magical out there? There's got to be something wrong. When cold hard truth is you probably just haven't figured out the basics. You probably haven't been doing the basics. And why? Because you don't know your numbers, right? And that's what, tying it back into finances, you gotta know your numbers. How much are you taking in? How much are you letting out? Right? What is the basis where you have to be for maintenance just to coast? Right? Everything comes down to that. So with the help of my coach, we were able to find out what my numbers are. And now, just like in finance, the numbers change over time, as mine did over time for the goal that I wanted. Mine was to step on stage. I needed to lose weight. So we went into a calorie deficit. Now, how we got there along the way is all individualized,
Gotcha.
okay? We don't necessarily have to go into all that, but it's all individualized. But know that at the end, where I started at around 3,200 calories, by the time I walked on stage, I was hitting just below 1,800 calories, working out 6 days a week with 40 minutes of cardio every day. Now, that's what my numbers were. And if I were to break that down even more, you got your calories, but then what's protein? What's carbohydrates? What's fats? Those are your four: calories, protein, carbs, and fats. And I
Are
like
these
just
the
gave myself a little.
are these the four major numbers? So we got
Those
calories.
are your four major numbers. You
Okay.
know those numbers. You can do whatever it is you want, brother.
Wow. Okay, so hold on. So calories, carbs, right?
Protein
Protein
and fat.
and fat. These are your four major numbers, folks. Wow. So that's the first like
How does that look right there, Denzel? I mean, take a look at what it is you have us all do. What's your foundation? Go ahead, go to the whiteboard. Show everyone. It's
yeah,
exactly that.
yeah. Okay, so there we got these four numbers, and then in finance, right? We know this as everyone watching. It's income, expense, debt, and cash flow. All right. And I guess to a degree, would you, when it comes to these four categories, um, outside of, say, I guess going to a doctor to get these tracked, is this something we could do at home uh, to understand these numbers, or do I have to do blood work to get these numbers? Help us out with that.
Honestly, you don't. Yeah, that's an excellent question. So this is stuff that you can honestly do at home, right? You can do at home. Now, it's a little bit difficult if you've never done this before. But there's plenty of information out there. You can go on my page, on my Instagram page, and there's a bunch of videos and a bunch of carousel posts that I have that kind of break down on how you can go about this on your own, or you can hire a coach and they can help you find it yourself and then guide you a little bit more meticulously than just guessing around. I know I have a little bit more of a plan in place and I also know what to look for when helping individuals seek their numbers and then what to do after we get the numbers. But if for everyone out there, if you wanted to take yourself to kind of figure out where you wanted to go, a very rough and dirty way of doing this is jump on the scale. First thing in the morning after you've gone to the bathroom, jump on the scale and see what your weight is. From there, you times it by 10. So if you weigh, 200 pounds, you're going to take that and it's going to be 2,000. Now, 2,000 is going to be your overall calories. All right, we're going to take that as your overall calories. Now, let's say you want to start losing weight. So, okay, now I know what 2,000 calories are. That's my base, let's say. Now, what do I do with the other ones? What do I do with protein? How do I figure out protein? How do I figure out carbs? And how do I figure out fats? So, what you can do from there is take your weight again, just to make it rough and easy. Go right to the protein and write 200 grams. So you have 2,000 calories, you have 200 grams of protein. So that basically equals 1 gram per pound, right? That's a real rough estimate. There's a lot more technical than that we can go into, but for everyone out there, just do that. Take your calories and your protein.
So
That's it.
calories, 200 times 10, and that
Right.
gets
So it's whatever your weight is. So that was
okay.
just the example. So
Cool.
if you're taking your weight in the morning on the scale, you take that and you times it by 10. You just add a zero to it. Just basically add a zero
Cool.
at the end.
Yeah, and then with the protein, whatever your weight is, that's how many grams.
Correct. So that would be 1 gram per pound,
1 gram
essentially,
per
right? That's
pound.
the formula. 1 gram per pound. Now, the next thing you would want to go to is technically, people say carbs is the next thing. No, no, no. You want to, let's go to fat first. We're going to go to fat first. And this is where you get to play around. So here's the secret. If you wanted to simply lose weight, gain weight, you could stop there. You could stop at calories and protein, and you can reach 85 or 80% of your goal just with those two numbers. Because the fats and the carbs can be played around with. It really, the body doesn't necessarily matter, because once you get into that realm, it's more of a preference. And this is where a coach can come in, because they can ask you, or what I ask my clients is, what is it that you crave? What is it that you like more? Do you like fatty foods more? Do you like salty foods more? Do you like sugary foods? Like what is your go-to thing? What do you enjoy the most? Is it ice cream? Is it potato chips? Is it pretzels? Is it candy bars? Is it Snickers? Is it Skittles? What is it that you go to, or that you find yourself not wanting to do without? Okay, because here's the beauty when it comes to health. We've been going around all numbers. All these fad diets, they all are restrictive in food, or types of food, or components of food. Gluten this, carbo this, no fat, high fat. None of that matters to an extent. None of that matters, especially when you're first trying to get your basis. The only two that I would say that truly, truly matter is calories, obviously, and then protein. Protein drives so much. It's so undervalued. And if you were just to simply follow and stay within the 2,000 calories in this example, and hit your 200 grams of protein consistently, you will see a significant change in your physique. Significant. Whether that be, at this point we don't know yet, but it would be either fat loss, weight gain, whatever have you. But right there is your starting point.
Yeah.
Right there is your
So
starting.
this is great. So before we even get into what the strategy is of quote unquote losing weight or gaining weight, trying to, bulk up, or for most people it's lose weight. Like in America, majority of Americans are obese. So I'd say their primary goal is lose weight, feel healthier, right? Like not feel so
Yeah.
tired in the middle of the afternoon after you eat a lunch or whatever, like, eat cleaner, eat better, that sort of thing, so you feel better, have more energy. If you have more energy, you're going to be able to perform better. If you're performing better, you're going to have
Yeah.
better ideas to reach your dreams and goals. And that's how it correlates with the finance. And just to clarify something, I seen something in the comments. I wasn't doing this in terms of calories equals income or carbs equals expenses. That's not what I was doing. I was just simply drawing the comparison as it relates to finance. You need to know these four major numbers before we talk about anything. Pay off debt, increase cash flow, increase income, save money on taxes, life insurance. Doesn't matter what you want to do with money, you have to know these numbers. How much money you coming in, how much money's going out, what debt obligations do you have, if any, right? And then what's the cash flow at the end of the month. I wasn't saying that cash flow equals fat or debt equals protein. So just to create that
Yeah,
clarification there, I was just
that's a whole other thing. I don't know how to throw that in there.
yeah, yeah,
That
no, no, no.
box is
I wouldn't even try to draw that, you know, uh, relationship there. I was just saying, look, there's four and there's four. So as it relates to health, sometimes we watch things on the internet, how to lose weight fast, right? Or try this or do this supplement. So you immediately start spending money on vitamins, on changing the foods immediately, or let me try this diet, this thing. Let me go sign up for this membership. Let me go hire this person or whatever. And it's like, well, before you do any of that, let's actually just see where you are at, right? And that's what Chris
exactly.
is telling us to do here is like, let's just figure out how many calories are you taking in a day on average, or your carbs, protein, fat. Let's look at those things. So we've got two numbers so far. We've got the protein number, right? And we have the calorie number in the example dealing with someone that weighs 200 pounds, right?
Correct.
And let's
So
say their goal is to lose weight. So that's the goal that they have. They want to lose weight, feel better about themselves. But before we get into the whole strategy, you're just simply saying take that number, times it by 10 to get your calories. This is the ideal number we want to be at. It doesn't mean that the person that's 200 pounds is consuming 2,000 calories. They're probably consuming more than that, right? Assuming.
potentially more, potentially less. At this point, we don't know. This is just a rough,
Rough.
very rough and dirty starting point.
Yeah.
Extremely initial starting point. You know, a person could be gaining weight with this much. We just don't know, or
Right.
they could be losing. We don't know.
Okay. So at the fat
So
number.
the next thing would be fat.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we want to do is we want to take the 2,000, and then we want to times that by whatever percentage we want here, as far as how much do we want it to be. Do we want fats to be 50%? Do we want fats to be 30%? Do we want fats to be 40% of our diet? What is it here that we want the fats to be? Personally speaking, I don't necessarily like going below 30% of the total daily intake, and the reason for that is because we start potentially seeing, for the general public, we don't want to go that low, because you start seeing some hormonal changes that can start coming into effect. You could really push the envelope if you were to, let's say, a competitive bodybuilder or physique competitor, where you
Right.
can start going into the 25% and 20 range. But for the general population, I generally like to stay anywhere from 30 to like 45%.
All right. 30 to 45%. And this,
That's of the
what does that
2,000.
mean? Okay, of the 2,000. Got it.
Right. So you would take it, then you would times it by that, and there's your calories, right? So in our example, if I'm going to just whip out the calculator, you got 2,000, you times that by, let's say, 30%. That's 600, right? So
So we're talking
that's 600
600
calories
calories is
of
fat.
fats.
Okay.
Correct.
To as high
And
as,
that's 30% of 2,000.
right. So anywhere from 600 to 900 of the 2,000 calories you're taking in, 600 to 900 of those calories are fats.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
That's our fat
And
number.
then exactly. And what you want to do there is, since we've put proteins in the grams, we now have to take the calories and convert that to grams as well. And here's what we need to do. We need to take that 600 to 900 and divide it by 9.
Okay.
And why do we divide it by 9? We divide it by 9 because there are 9 calories per gram of fat.
Okay. 9 grams of calorie per fat.
So 9 calories per gram of fat.
Got it. 9 calories of 1 gram, right? Did I say that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Per
So
fat.
if we were to do, of fat.
Of
So
fat.
if we were to take the 600, you're looking at 66, roughly 66 grams of fat.
Got it. So 66 to 90 something, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, this is cool.
So now you have two numbers. You have your grams of protein and you have your grams of fat. So now you know how much you're going to consume of that. Now all that's left is carbohydrates.
Okay.
And it's basically the difference of the two. So you have 800 calories of protein, because we take the 200 and we times it by 4, because protein is 4 calories per gram of protein.
Calories. Say that one more time, slower.
Okay. So we have the grams of protein and we have the grams of fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get the carbs, we just have to take the difference. So we now have 200 grams of protein times that by 4.
Got it. So 8.
Oh, it's protein, not carbs.
Oh, okay. Will this get me to the carbs though?
This will eventually, yes. So
Okay,
we're going to
got it.
take the difference, right? So we now know that that's 800 calories. We also know that let's take the 600 calories of fats and we're going to add that to the 800.
Okay, so that's 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So now we know exactly. And now we're going to take 2,000 minus 14, and that's your difference of 600.
Okay.
2,000. 2,000.
Yes,
Not 3.
2,000
2,000.
minus 14, right?
Yep. And now you divide that number again by 4.
Okay.
And you're right in that range, right? Yeah, exactly. So now we have our grams. We have 200 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, and 66 grams of fat. And that's what your numbers are for a 2,000 calorie
What is the 150
diet. That is your carbs.
carbs?
Gram
So
of carbs. Yep.
150 grams
Correct.
of carbs. The way we got there was taking, again, the protein. Start here with protein. 200 grams times 4 is 800. That equals calories.
Correct.
And then you said, now take that 800, add 600
Calories
grams or
of fat.
calories of fat. Okay, calories of fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a total of
There's
1,400, which equals,
That's your calories.
that's protein plus calories. Is that kind of
Protein plus fat.
protein?
Protein plus fat.
Got it. So protein plus fat equals that. And then you said, okay, take the 2K number.
We're going to
Minus it.
subtract minus the 14. And now you're left with 600 calories.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates are just like protein. They are 4 calories per gram. That's why we divide it by 4. And now you have your 150 grams of carbs as your leftover.
Okay. So what is a calorie, right? Let's start there.
Calorie is a measurement. Yeah, calorie is a measurement of energy, essentially. So that's basically what it is. More specifically in chemistry, it's called a kcal or kcalorie. It's just a measurement of energy of what we burn or what we consume.
Got it.
So
Got it. And
that's what a
so,
calorie is.
all right, so let's do this. So a calorie is a measurement of energy.
Man, I'm loving this, man.
Yeah.
I'm really geeking out here.
Yeah, I like this stuff too. So we have energy, and you're saying food that we consume is energy for the body. It's going to end up being a carb, a protein, a fat, or a mixture of all three.
It's exactly what it is. That's the body doesn't know, and that's the beauty of what we may discuss later on. Is, as I was saying, all these fad diets, they don't tell you that, or they don't teach you that.
Right.
Okay, they don't show you. They
Never
don't
seen a
show you this.
single
All they
food.
tell you is follow this plan. That's it.
Right.
Just follow this plan. Avoid these foods. Don't eat this. Don't eat that. When the body doesn't recognize a slice of bread versus a teaspoon of sugar. It doesn't recognize it. Why? Because ultimately, it all turns into a carbohydrate. It's all sugar and glucose in the system. That's it. It doesn't matter. It's just how quickly does it get into the system, how much it breaks down in the system. That's all it is. But when it comes to the chemistry of it, the body doesn't recognize anything else but calories, protein, fats, carbs. And that's it.
Wow. Okay, so we've got over here, we've got our fat number, we've got our protein number, we got the
If
calorie
I
number,
would,
and then
in
we
that little
ended with
chart
carbs.
if go to the measurement of energy. I want your audience to really write these numbers down. So we're gonna put 1 gram of protein. So 1 gram protein equals 4 calories.
No matter what.
No matter what. Now the next one will do the same thing. 1 gram of carbs or carbohydrate equals 4 calories.
No matter what. This is a law.
And then 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. Right, calories. Yeah, on top you have to fix. You put carbs. You got to
Oh,
fix that on
okay.
top. Put it.
Right here, right?
No, they're all calories. So 4 calories for.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, that, and let me delete this one.
Yeah.
So 1 gram of carb equals 4 calories. Got it.
These don't change for the basic Gen Pop. This isn't going to change. This is the law of thermodynamics in a nutshell. That's what that is.
Very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot more nuance. The numbers may not be exactly that, but that's like super advanced, and we don't care about that. This is a nice roundabout numbers that we can go on we can do anything from here. So basically, you follow this formula, you can do a rough and dirty estimate of where you're going to start. And then from here, it's just adding or subtracting. And what I would say next to do in this type of situation is if we're going to add or subtract, we don't touch protein. Protein's going to stay constant for now.
Okay.
If you want to add or subtract, you work on your carbohydrates and your fats. Okay? And the beauty of it is now that you have those numbers, you can almost forget the calories to a certain extent. You don't necessarily need that, but as long as you know where you're at around there, you're going to be able to figure it out any which way. Okay? So your numbers that you're going to tweak with are going to be your carbohydrates or your fats.
Okay.
But the rest remains the same. So if you want to gain weight, add a little bit of carbs. And then if you still want to gain weight more, then add a little bit of fat. I would always recommend doing one or the other at first if you're brand new. If you've got a coach, he may do both at the same time, and that's fine. It's because he can see different things, and if you're just experimenting on your own, do one at a time so you know how your body responds. Because like you said before, we're now wanting to feel better. What makes us feel better? Okay? You'll begin to learn, as I did, that through dieting down, you get to see and learn about nutrition labels, and you get to really start looking at it and trying to fit that into your numbers. And when you start realizing and fitting those foods, any food, I'm not restricting you, but you'll soon learn that there are foods out there, and you'll look at the label and you'll be like, oh, damn, I can't, I can only have one half of this, one half. And
Right.
it's blowing half of my day's numbers. Yeah, that's what happens. Because there's beautiful amounts of food. God made this world with smart people that know how to make stuff tasty. And good God, is that good? But some of the times it's loaded with calories. Okay? One of the biggest things I remember going through when I did my 3 years of keto, and I'm open about this now because I was a hard keto advocate, very, very hard. And one of the big things in that type of realm is when they want to start demonizing certain food groups, carbohydrates are it, or it's all this fat. They start demonizing it, and then what they do is they throw conspiracies behind it to make you start questioning everything and everyone and any type of intention. When ultimately Occam's razor says the simplest answer tends to be the right one. Okay? What makes more sense? That there is a government agency or oversight on the food industry that's wanting to make people sick by making foods more unhealthy? Or is it that just like any capitalist society, I want to make money and I give the people what they want, which is more tasty foods? I don't know about you, but I like eating tasty food. So I'm going to go out and buy more tasty food and eat more of it. Problem is that I don't do enough expenditure to allow myself to eat that much. So therefore I gain weight. That's what I fell into that trap. And I teach this now, and some, it may fall on some deaf ears at times, but bring it down to the most simplest thing. Bring it back all the way back to the basics. What are you consuming? How much of it are you consuming? It's not necessarily the quality of it, because we can get into that as well, because there are such things as micronutrients. But at the very, very beginning, let's find out where you are. And I don't want you to be burdened with not having to go out and have, a burger if you don't want it every once in a while. If you can fit it into your numbers, go and have it. You want to have a serving of ice cream with your family at night? I want you to have it, as long as it fits your numbers and we can work around it. And that's where my coach really helped me. I remember sitting on the couch, eating ice cream every single day and losing weight. I was shedding body fat. And that's where also I want people to understand also, you don't want to lose weight, because losing weight means muscle as well. You want to lose fat. And there's a big important difference there. So I just want everyone to understand, words matter and simplicity matters. And the more open you are to expanding your horizons and learning, because that's what I do, I teach. I don't just give you a plan. I want you to learn how to do this for yourself so that you don't need me anymore, right? But it can take time. And there is a process. There is a process.
Just like with your finances, it's not overnight. Some people want to try the DIY style, and to a degree, some people have success, and that's great. And I would even argue that those people who have had success DIY, chances are you're probably a teacher. You might be really good or really skilled in that particular area, and there might be a calling for you there. But for the vast majority of other people, you need accountability. You need support. You need that one-to-one. You need that personal touch, that encouragement. And there's a lot with how we take in knowledge when it is fed to us on an intimate level, in a one-to-one space where it's personal, where I can say, Chris, this is what I'm dealing with. I do this, and this, and you share your numbers. So I guess a way of sharing your numbers in the health space is saying, this is what I eat, and I'm not lying about it. I don't measure, I don't portion, I don't do anything yet. I'm all open, right? So after you get someone's 4 major numbers, calories, carbs, proteins, and fats, and you kind of have an understanding of where they're at, I guess to get an increased level of accuracy would, other than weighing the individual, is there a way to, I guess, outside of taking blood, or would that be the way to get clear, accurate numbers on?
No, but yeah, blood markers are a different side of health. So with blood markers, you're looking more at, let's say, your cholesterol and things like your blood sugar. Hitting the basics can fix certain ailments. Like, for example, if you have high cholesterol and you're on cholesterol medication, unless there's a genetic component, which there's always those individuals who have genetic dispositions to things.
Correct.
Outside of that, the vast majority of the can be helped with just eating less or consuming less calories. 8 times out of 10, 80, I'll put it at 80%, maybe 85% of the time that can work.
Okay.
So basically, and even blood pressure. Again, blood pressure, even with a simple fat loss or weight reduction, can help people with their blood pressure. My wife, for example, she was diagnosed with high blood pressure when she was younger, in her teens. She was an overweight individual, and through the simple weight loss, she was able to limit the amount of blood pressure medication that she was on. There is a certain genetic component with her, but even now that she is on my plan, after with kids and everything, she's now decided she's more dedicated now. She has time. She feels in a safe place and a good headspace and mindset to where she wants to reach a particular goal. She's been now on a plan now with me for about 2 months. Just started recently lifting weights again, which is another big component to a healthier lifestyle, is resistance training. And with that, her with very minimal low dose of a particular blood pressure medication that she is on, her blood pressure is, for the very first time, I would consider it a controlled blood pressure, which is, I think her reading was 118 over 80 at the physician's office just last week, and she has never been that low on her own, so to speak. Even with medication, she was always a 130, 135, maybe a 140 in the blood pressure range, and that's with medication. But now with the plan, she's been reduced. I have a client in India for blood sugar. And anyone who knows demographics, Indian population, Indian culture, have very, very high incidences of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And this individual was pre-diabetic. His wife is actually a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he could not keep his glucose under control. And with my plan, in just 6 weeks, he was having fasting blood sugar below the normal range, or the below the 200 range. So he was seeing success there, and his wife was actually quite ecstatic because he was going to have to go on medications, and he was already on some and now has come off of them. He was always on and off because he was pre-diabetic, then he was diabetic, then pre-diabetic. So he was going back and forth, and now he's off of them because of a simple change and focus on hitting the numbers. We hadn't actually changed his diet in the foods that he was consuming outside of maybe trying to hit the numbers. So he was still consuming what he wanted, but he was maintaining within his numbers, and he lost 10 pounds and was now having a normal fasting blood glucose level. And that is the power of just understanding and watching your numbers.
Okay. So once someone knows their numbers and understands this part, the measurements, and you give them this part, the very next step, and I think you just went into it, and I think I might have missed it, but what would be that very next step after you go over someone's numbers? This is just a general case study here, probably very
Yeah.
helpful for the majority of people listening. Very next step.
You're going to track it. You have to have a way of tracking it, right?
Okay,
How do I,
right.
now that I have my number, how do I
Yeah.
track it?
So how to track, right? That's the next step. What
So we live
tools?
now in a beautiful society where there's technology, and we have these things called cell phones, and on these cell phones we have applications. MyFitnessPal is probably the most well known. I don't think it's the best one out there, but it is something that you can get. There are some free ones, Chronometer, Fat Secret. There are even some that go so sophisticated, in which they have a AI algorithmic coach built into them, which they can, kind of guide you if you didn't want to, let's say, get a one-on-one personal coach and you just wanted to do the whole digital thing. You can purchase a particular app. There are a couple out there: Macro Factor, Carbon, RP Diet app, that will guide you along the way with your numbers, whether it's to lose, maintain, or gain, and they will provide those numbers for you. Again, it's just a digital. There's no coach and no one-on-one. It's just you scanning a barcode or um, searching the food database, and in it is listed exactly those numbers for every food item. It tells you the carb, like for a banana, roughly off the top of my head, you're getting 1 gram of protein, 1 gram of fat, and roughly 30 to 35 grams, depending on the size of the banana, of carbohydrates. Same thing with apples. And, you know, now I know that because I've had them so many times that I memorize the numbers. But the person just starting off, you don't know that. So you need help with that. And that's where current lifestyle and current technology allows us to do this so much easier than ever before. Back in the 90s and the 80s, when you had the likes of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, they had no idea they didn't have apps, they didn't have phones. What they did was they did everything on a piece of paper. They went pen and paper and researched everything, because all of this food database has been around ever since we had the food pyramid. Even before that, we kind of knew what foods were, as far as those four numbers: how many calories they were, how much protein per serving, how much carb per serving, and fat per serving. And that's what I say, per serving, because people have to understand, when it comes to packaged foods, the label is issued in servings, per servings, and people may think that it's the entire bag, entire package. Okay. Be
Right.
very cognizant of what that is. And little experiment for everyone here, and tell me and put it in the comments below if you've done this. Go and look at a jar of peanut butter. Everyone has, unless you're allergic, has a jar of peanut butter in their cabinet right now. Go out, take it, and look at the serving size. And if you have a scale, weigh out the serving size on a spoon. And before you do that, just take a spoon, a separate spoon, and just take a scoop of what you would normally eat. Let's say a spoonful of peanut butter. And then see the difference. You will be amazed at the amount of a serving size of peanut butter versus what you would think a traditional tablespoon, teaspoon, scoop would be. And just imagine how much. And now peanut butter is all fat. Not all fat, but it's a fat source. People think it's protein. It has protein, but it is mainly a fat source, because there is a lot more fat than there is protein in. Say that example because peanut butter tastes delicious. It's good. You put it in everything. You put it on anything, and you know what? It is very calorie dense for such a small little serving that you get. So that's a little example that I'd like to throw everyone for a loop, because serving size matters. Serving size matters.
Okay. So would the next step, find a digital app, something where you can input what it is that you're eating on a daily basis? That would be the next logical move. Now,
Right.
would you recommend someone buying a scale? And if so,
Have to have a scale.
okay.
So that's your next thing. Now you have the mode. Now you have the mode of capturing what it is you eat. Your next thing is you're going to want a scale, a food scale. Doesn't matter. Basic food scale. I have one that's Amazon Basic.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be elaborate. There are some people out there that have these scales that have, like, you punch in what food you're weighing and it tells you on a nutrition label. I don't care about that. You don't need that. Just buy a food scale for $10 and be done with it.
Something super simple. All right. So you buy a food scale, and I would assume the next thing is, how do you portion? How do you feed yourself when it comes to
that's it. Now this is where your ingenuity and your thinking process has to come in, because again, you have your numbers. You now have the food. All you got to do is just now plug it into that app, right? And you tell, let's say I want a bowl of cereal. You put the bowl on the scale, you press the button, it turns on. You take your cereal and you just start pouring it in. Don't look at the number yet. Just start pouring it in. And why do I say that? Because I want you to look at what normal size you would normally have. Okay,
Okay.
that's the whole point here. The very first 2 weeks of any of my program, I tell everyone I'm not worried about whether the your weight goes up or down initially. Because if you're brand new, you got to learn how to actually do this stuff first. You got to learn all these basic steps. So take what you normally would do, but track it. I don't care whether you're higher or lower at this point because I want you to see where you've normally lived versus
Mhm.
where we're going to have to go,
Yeah, that's
right? It's huge because you don't know what you don't know. And this is the aha moment. This is the awakening. This is the enlightening portion of this whole rediscovery for nutrition for yourself. This is the experiment phase where you get to see what it is that how much you've had, how much you can consume. I had one of my wife's friends come and visit for a week, and she was following calories. She had done the whole app thing, and she was following it. And she's plugging her numbers in. She's telling me all this stuff. Now she's not following me 100%, and she's like, I told her you got to be around 1,800 calories. And she's doing all this stuff, and she's like, I can't get below this number. I said, okay, math is math, and law of thermodynamics doesn't lie. If you're eating 1,800 calories, you should be losing weight at this particular rate each week. That's a very basic thing. And sure enough, she admitted she wasn't, she was eyeballing things. Oh, I think it's this, I think it's that. Fine. Okay. She comes and she's now staying over at my house. And now we're all eating meals together. We're cooking our meals. We're showing her things. And now we're going and measuring it out for her. True 1,800 calories worth of food throughout the day, and it was an eye opener. At one point, she said she was really hungry, which is okay. That's okay because again, you've been eating more, all right, thinking you're doing 1,800, but now you're at a point where the third day in, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I feel really hungry." Yes, and one of the things that we did, my wife and I, was we did exactly this: cook the way you normally would cook everything. She made a beautiful pasta dish. It was immense. It was delicious. But when we tracked everything and showed her exactly how much of this beautiful food that she made she could have and fit into her numbers, it wasn't as big as she was anticipating, or it wasn't as much as she said she would normally have in her first serving. And I said, that's okay. Why? Because now you know. Now you understand. And from there, now your cooking is going to get even better because you're now going to start trying to go out and venture out to learn how to cook with different ingredients that allow you to have more food and have less calories. This
Mm,
is where the ingenuity starts to come in.
okay. So a calorie is it not necessarily the amount of food or the weight of the food necessarily, or is there a direct
Not
correlation?
not necessarily, but it's the way you track it, right? Because again, it's all about the serving size and what that nutritional density or the nutritional profile, I should say, of that particular food. Everything is different, right? So an apple is not the same as a banana, nutritional wise, nutrition profile wise. The numbers and carbs may be different with it, but the weight of it could still be the
The
same. Like I
weight
can
would
have
be
100 grams of apple and 100 grams of banana, but the nutritional profile of it could mean that that's only 30 grams of carbs, whereas the banana could be 40 grams of carbs.
okay.
Okay,
That's
so that's the difference, and that's why you plug it into the app, and it brings up that food database that it's got. It runs those algorithms, and it knows, okay, this apple has this nutritional profile, and this is how much of that apple he's having. So therefore, these are the numbers of carbs, protein, and fat that's coming out of it.
got it. Got it. So when you because I need to go buy a scale, so that's gonna be my next action step personally. Is I'm gonna go buy a food scale. When you put your food on the scale, how does it know the difference between the food and the plate? Or like, I'm just trying to think here. Like
So let's just go real basic. At the very beginning, go real basic. Just you're getting it doesn't know unless you plug it in, right?
okay,
So when you plug it in and you then weigh it, then you tell the app, I have 80 grams of apple. Enter. And then it pops up. That's how much you're going to consume of fat, protein, and carbs. And remember, it's kind of like going back in. Now you know these were my numbers, these are my buckets for the day. I now remove X amount from there, X amount from there, X amount from there, and that's what I have left for the day.
okay, got it. So
See, this is where a coach can really come into play, because
yeah,
if you're trying to do this all on your own, it's really a tug of war, let's say, because how am I going to have this clarification? What about recipes? How do I do recipes? That's a whole nother ball game. What about cooked versus uncooked or raw? How do I know which one? Because you think about it, there are certain foods that when you cook it get bigger. Pasta, rice. What number do I choose?
uh,
If you ever weighed pasta or rice before and after, it's going to weigh more after it's cooked because it absorbed all the water. What about meat? Chicken, steak, two things I absolutely love. What happens? Raw, it's going to weigh more than after it cooked. Why? Because it loses water. So, all of this stuff, what do you do there? Again, it's very simple, but that's what a coach is there for, right? That's why why you go and seek the individual. You can go and look it online. Again, all the information's out there.
so
But there's that personal connection.
I'm assuming you weigh the food after it's all cooked.
It can. Again, it doesn't necessarily, in that sense, I would always say to the individual, whatever your preference is, go with it.
Okay.
Because if you go to eat out, just know if you go to eat out and you go to a steak restaurant and they say an 8-ounce filet mignon and you always look at it and you're like, this is 8 ounces. No, it's not 8 ounces once it hits your plate. It was the 8 ounces raw.
Yeah.
So just so that everyone knows that if you're going out there and you're getting 8 ounce, it still has the same nutritional value. It just weighs less,
Yeah.
right? Just letting everyone know that it has the same, that 8-ounce steak raw still has the same nutritional value, essentially, of it being cooked. It's just going to weigh less. That's all.
Got it. Okay. So now we know our numbers. We're buying an app where we can input our numbers into so that we can see day by day, week by week, month by
Right.
month, I don't know if we're gonna have pinpoint accuracy, and I don't know if that's necessarily
At
the
first, you won't.
goal. Right.
No,
I don't think that's
I'm
the
saying at
goal.
first you won't.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's not the goal, especially if you're not competing. I guess if you're competing, you're probably getting down to the wire on, you know, how.
Right. In the very beginning, whether you're competing or not, most likely competitors, if you're in the competitive realm and you may have done this once or twice before. Um, if you're just brand new and you're just doing this for health purposes, you have a lot of time on your hands. Usually, if you're a competitor, you don't have time because you're doing something for a show and that's got a set time and date. If you're doing this just for your own health, this is what I try to say. If you're doing this for your own health, embrace the process.
Yeah.
Don't try to rush it. There isn't anything good that comes out of rushing it. You want to learn how to do this because once you reach your goal, if you haven't learned how to do this,
You backtrack.
9 times out of 10, you're going to go right back.
Yeah.
You're going to go right back. And that today, you could see it in fad diets or exercise routines all over the place. It happens because they don't teach you how to do this on your own. And now, being a pharmacist, we have these wonderful, wonderful drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy and Tirzepatide, all these, as they say, GLP-1 agonists. And I did a video on this just recently, and I have a little post on my Instagram page that these are modern wonder drugs. They are. You cannot disagree with that. They are wonderful, and they're only getting better. They're the ones in research now that are like 2 years out from being approved or even coming to market potentially are only getting better. It's amazing what we can do now. But it only works if you understand it behind it. One of my clients now, she's on and she's with me. She's on one of these weight loss drugs and she's with me. Why? She needs a plan. You still need a plan.
Yeah.
That it's basic, because once you come off of it, what are you going to do? You're going to wind up going back to your old habits. If you haven't learned what to do, you're going to go back to the way you were, and it's going to all come back. Unfortunately, that's what the data shows, that even with these modern drugs,
Yeah.
80 to 90% of the individuals wind up rebounding.
So whether someone does or uses any kind of medication, drug, pills, or procedures like lipo
Oh,
or surgeries
yeah.
or anything like
I've
that,
had clients like that as well.
there could be an initial, say, boost or an immediate gratification result, but without a long-term plan, you're going to find yourself going right back, or we may pick up certain problems, diseases, or certain things along the way that could just derail the whole situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and you said something interesting earlier about you don't want to lose weight, you want to lose fat, right?
Correct.
Because when you say lose weight, that's a combination of fat and muscle, or
Right. So
there's
excellent,
different
excellent
things.
question.
There's different things that
Yeah.
you're losing in your body, right?
Absolutely. So, you've ever heard the term water weight,
Yeah.
right? Oh, that low water weight. Yeah, because your body holds on and retains water. A lot of times that's a hormonal thing, or it could be what type of foods you eat. If you eat a lot of sugary carbohydrates, the muscles tend to draw in all that extracellular fluid just floating out there. So now you hold into that. So that's where water retention comes into play. Think about people that have swollen limbs. That's all water, right? And that's all water, extracellular fluid that's turning intracellular and all that stuff. So there's water weight. Then you have muscle, right? You have muscle. That's weight. It's weight there, and you can lose muscle. People atrophy, right? When a muscle atrophies, it shrinks. It loses its size. It loses its muscle. So there's loss of mass there.
Mhm.
You could lose bone,
I was about
right?
to ask. Yeah.
Osteoporosis, right? You're
Mhm.
losing bone density. Your bones aren't as strong anymore. So there's a lot of losses that can happen, and including now fat cells. And here's also something that general population doesn't know. You have a certain number of fat cells in your body that's predestined, I should say. So based upon your genetics, you're going to have a particular shape to you. You're going to have certain areas in your body in which have more fat or gain more fat than others. Okay, for men, generally, it's in the lower abdomen area. For women, it's in the hips and in the butt area. These are generalities, but individuals will get to notice that if you look at your family tree, you can have a rough estimate as to, if you have a very lean person, you can see where their muscles mass and size will be, versus if you have an individual in your family that's kind of on the larger side, where maybe your problem areas would be also if you were to be that particular weight. So there's a certain predisposition for fat deposit on a person's body as well. And here's another thing: when you do fat loss through the traditional method like we do through the laws of thermodynamics, the fat cell itself doesn't disappear. All it does is shrink. Okay, it shrinks in size.
Okay.
That's why you can regain it, and when you regain it, it tends to go into the same areas that you thought you lost it.
Ah.
Really, on a on a real deep level, you never really lost that cell to begin with. It just depleted and got rid of all that excess energy that it was storing for you, because you didn't want it. You didn't want that there anymore. So if you were to blow through your calories, and over time, those cells start to fill back up again, and voila, you've just regained that weight that you spent all that time trying to lose.
All
So
that time and money.
that's something else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All that time and money. So
And the way you avoid the loss of muscle, because that is important. Studies have shown that with increased muscle mass, there is a higher propensity of longevity. Okay, so meaning you more muscle you have on your frame, you generally are going to be living longer. Okay, there's a definite correlation there.
Yeah.
On the flip side, with less muscle mass, there's a propensity of expiring sooner. Okay, so and with higher diseases, so they kind of correlate, right? Um, so when I say losing, we want to lose the fat, but maintain, retain, or gain muscle. And the beauty of gaining muscle and resistance training is the more muscle you put on, there is a higher adaptation of metabolic rate to which you can now consume more calories and maintain a certain weight. So you get to enjoy more food
Oh, wow.
without the detriments of gaining fat cells or increasing your fat storage, because your muscle mass is now taking in all those additional calories and using it to maintain itself as muscle or build muscle, as opposed to storing it for later on in life when it's needed.
Okay, that's very interesting. So there's a world where we start in this example at 200-pound person that I guess could there be someone that take two people that weigh 200 pounds, one could look amazing, right? And the other could look way out of shape. And so,
Absolutely.
but let's say those two people are the same exact height, right? Um, so that person didn't necessarily need to quote unquote lose weight. They needed to replace the weight with,
That's
either
one
more
method.
muscle
That's
or,
one way of doing
okay.
it.
That's one way of doing it. Okay,
That's
got
one way of looking at it. So an infamous physicians meeting where they were looking at and studying BMI, body mass index, and there's a chart out there that shows like a general range for general population. Within, if you're within a certain height and weight, you're going to be in this body mass index, and depending on where you are on the scale, it tells you whether you're in a healthy range, an unhealthy range, severely unhealthy range, malnutrition range, so on and so forth, right? And the physicians were given a profile just on paper. A 30-year-old male at the age, at the weight of 235. He is 6'1", and he has a history of this thing, and this thing. His BMI is, I don't know the range off head, but let's say it's 35, and that puts him into the obese range. Okay, so again, height is 6'1", his weight is 235, and his BMI now is in the 35 range. Now that would be overweight or obese, or maybe on the very close to each other. And the question was asked: is this individual? Would you consider this individual for weight loss drugs, or consider this individual for high blood pressure medication, or all these other diseases? 90% of the people, of the physicians, raised their hand in confirmation. Yes, we would recommend this patient for yada yada yada. The next very slide was a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger winning one of his Mr. Olympias or Miss Universe titles, Mr. Universe titles.
it.
So it's not always the complete picture. He was 230 pounds shredded at like 8% body fat on stage.
Yeah.
That at 6'1" or 6 foot tall, you would look at this guy, he's at the epitome of health. This body mass index doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it puts him in a bad overweight obesity range, but you look at the individual, because of all of that 230 pounds, let's say 190, 185 of it was muscle, right?
Wow.
So there is a difference. There absolutely is a difference. You wouldn't consider Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime to be unhealthy. You look at that guy like, damn, why aren't I like that?
Hmm.
There's a lot of it is because he has muscle mass. He has an increased muscle mass.
Gotcha. And muscle mass with bone and the way your body looks at the end of the day, like we all want that physique. We all want to look a certain way, but think we need to weigh a certain amount to
Right.
get that specific look, and that may not be the case. right?
And also, I would say this, it's not necessarily also the look that, you're going for. That was an extreme example. But if you look at an individual, let's say in the elderly population, and they've done studies on this as well, they did a study of, I think, 10 participants all over the age of 65, okay? And they had them start doing resistance training, okay? They all built muscle at the age of 65. They were untrained, whether they had done
wow,
training programs in the past or never did anything at all. They were off, let's say, for a couple of years and they hadn't done anything. They all gained muscle. Now, was it a significant amount of muscle? No, but it doesn't matter. The potential, what I'm saying here is that it doesn't matter what your age is. You're always having the ability to build muscle. And if you build muscle and you build strength, I always say this: I want to be able, when I'm 75 years of age, I want to be able to get off the toilet on my own and not need to grab on to anything and have excessive assistance in doing so. Because if I can get off the toilet or get off a chair on my own, that means at the age of 75, my bone density, my bone structure, and my muscle system is at a good enough state where it can sustain me. And that is going to equate to, again, all things considering, to longer lifestyle, longer longevity.
yeah.
Okay? It's clear as day. Building muscle is so important.
So I think as we begin to get ready to close here, I think my biggest takeaway, I think, for the vast majority of people that think they need to quote unquote lose weight to be more healthy, I think a restructuring or rethinking of how we look at that, which is more so along the lines of, first, let's just understand and know your numbers first. Let's understand how you're eating, how much are you consuming per meal, where are you eating, right? Once we know your numbers, now we need to start tracking, and then we can start making changes. But it almost has nothing to do with necessarily do this, you will lose weight. Because then I think a lot of people quit when they get in programs because they're not quote unquote losing the amount of weight they thought, or they see a number and they think they're overweight when they see the scale. And in reality, it's no. A majority of that weight is not correct. For it needs to be more efficient, that specific weight. I'm coming off of a paleo diet myself, where yes, I've been losing weight as a byproduct of just eating less, and because I'm in this restrictive mode. But to your point of all these different diets, one of the issues is not sustainable, because at the end of the day, the doctor that I'm working with that recommended this diet didn't go into the numbers behind why I'm doing the thing. It was just more so the argument was, we need to put cleaner foods in your body. I get that argument. I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's just that alone is, I don't think it's enough for me to stay in that kind of range of quote unquote only eat these kinds of foods because they're quote unquote whole foods or clean or whatever the case may be, and it creates restrictive, and then it makes me want to go back and eat a ton.
Think of it this way: I can a bodybuilder's diet that always everyone always complains about or makes fun of: chicken, broccoli, and rice. Chicken, broccoli, and rice. Eat that and you'll lose weight. How much? I'm in a massing phase right now. I'm purposely trying to gain weight. I'm eating a ton of chicken, broccoli, and rice, and I'm gaining weight. And guess what? When I start to flip it off and I now want to lose weight, I'm going to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice, and I'm still going to lose weight. It's just the amount of those wholesome, healthy foods
Mhm.
that I'm going to consume. But either way, it depends on the amount and the amount of the food that I'm having that's going to determine whether I'm going to gain or lose. All healthy, all nutritious, full of nutrients, but at the end of the day, how much of it are you having? The paleo diet is a perfect example. I know exactly where you're going with that because I once did that. And you have people think that veganism or vegetarians, there are some heavy obese vegetarians out there, and that's supposedly the one of the best diets now is to go all plant-based. If you want to do that, great, go ahead, more power to you. But if you overeat, you're still going to go, you're,
Ah,
regardless of whether it's vegetarian or not,
right.
you're still going to gain weight.
So you could eat a ton of healthy food, and without proper tracking of the numbers and also some exercise resistant training in that, you could still end
Right.
up overweight, even though you eat clean, eat healthy, you could still be overweight. When we
And
don't,
that's where everyone is.
wow.
That's the mindset that everyone's at. They're like, but I'm eating healthy. You probably are. You are probably eating some of the most healthiest foods that we currently have on this planet.
You're just
But
eating
the
too much
bottom
of it.
line is, you're eating too much. You're
Mm.
just eating too much. You can't have a whole bushel of apples in one sitting or in one day. There was some insane thing where this woman was eating 30 bananas a day and she was losing weight. Yeah, because all you were having was 30 bananas a day, but your rest of your health markers were crap. It doesn't make sense. There was an infamous study, and this is where the whole calories in, calories out really took hold. Was there was a professor that did the Twinkie diet. All this man ate was Twinkies for 30 days straight. That was his entire, that and multivitamin, and that was it. He lost weight. People said, "Oh, he's going to gain fat." No, he lost weight, a significant amount of weight. But by what? Eating Twinkies. The most healthiest, that thing is going to last a nuclear bomb, okay? A Twinkie. He
Right.
was eating nothing but this. No one would say that a Twinkie is healthy, but the individual lost weight. Why? Because the amount of calories he was having for the day. Bottom line,
Back to your point, the body doesn't know the difference between a
doesn't know.
bread, a chicken, a steak. It just all breaks down
Doesn't know.
into these numbers. That's
Exactly.
amazing. That's insane. That's pretty cool stuff.
It's
Awesome.
eye-opening stuff. Trust me. Once you see it all, and,
Yeah.
and you start to actually delve into it, and you get to the basics. Going back to the finances, just know your basics. Know your numbers. Understand there. Don't try to look for the magic bullet because there is no magic outside of God Himself. There is no magic. What there is everything that He has put on this planet for us, and that's what ultimately did me in. It's like we have a wonderful world filled with all these delicious things. Whether you're into the packaged foods or people making, it's food. It's here. He put it on this earth for us to have. Why shouldn't I be able to have it? And the point is, you can. You can have it. It's just, what are you doing to allow yourself to have it and maintain a good health profile? That's the point.
Gotcha. And we will close with that in terms of the lesson here today. I want to bring you back. I want to do more of this. I even want to maybe interview.
This was fun.
Yeah, this is great. I want to be able to do more, like even have a case study where we can like show your process, how
Yeah.
people can get started with you. So I put Chris's link in the chat, his Instagram. I'll drop it in the comments as well. But tell us what your coaching program, say looks like, and what your um, say primary content place that you're putting out your material, education, and if someone wants to get a hold of you, what are the ways that we can do that?
Yeah, so my main social media outlet is right now Instagram. I plan on developing a podcast and putting something on YouTube. I'm in the beginning of stages of that. But right now, you can either find me at _Stanton approach, the _ again approach, the Stanton approach, or you can simply email me directly at stantonapproach@outlook.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I got that link up there for you guys. Check that out. Check out his Instagram. See the work that he's doing. You can DM him. You can email directly. And if anyone wants questions, he's available. Right? You've been putting together this one-to-one program coaching, and you can give people the initial steps and go from there. So it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you very
Been
much.
fun.
And I've had a ton of
So,
people tune in. I have to go. I think there were some questions in there. But we'll definitely address questions on our next one. I'll be sure to save some of the chat here, and
Yeah,
we'll address
definitely. If anyone
questions.
has questions, I would love to do like maybe a short question and answer session. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I think that'll be fun. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be talking soon.
So long.